Hey guys and gals, imagine a mesmerizing world where magic and mysteries entwine in an enchanting dance. Behold Vermeil in Gold, a spellbinding tale of a young mage named Alto who discovers a forbidden power within him and the demon who charmed him. Let's dive into the enchantment of Vermeil in Gold, my friends. Our story begins with our protagonist named Alto, who is being scolded by his teacher. Even though he has perfect grades, he won't be able to move on to the next year unless he manages to summon a familiar spirit, something that his fellow students have already achieved. Therefore, if he doesn't summon anything by the next day, he will be forced to repeat the year. After this conversation, his friend Lilia comes to see him, asking him about what the teacher told him. Upon learning about the situation, she becomes furious, wanting to confront the teacher. However, the protagonist stops her because he understands how important a familiar spirit is, as they are used for many activities at the school. Naturally, this saddens Lilia, who knows how hard her friend worked throughout the year. Sometime later, Alto finds himself in the library, searching for something that can help him. It's at that moment that an old book falls on him, and when he gets home, he discovers that it's a book for summoning something, although he doesn't know what since it's quite old. Without thinking, he performs the ritual, summoning a demoness who appears out of nowhere and due to her sudden appearance, starts to playfully and affectionately interact with our hero, telling him she will do whatever he asks. It's then that the protagonist asks her to be his familiar spirit, surprising the demoness when she realizes how powerful his mana is. After the contract is completed, the woman proceeds to feed on Alto's mana by kissing him and draining it. Once this is done, she asks him to put on clothes, but even this doesn't prevent her from looking beautiful to him. After finishing the contract, both of them sit down to talk. The demoness introduces herself as Vermeil and explains to the protagonist that his mana is so powerful that no creature wanted to be summoned by him. However, Vermeil agreed to be his familiar spirit because she has been trapped in the book for a long time and feels grateful. The next day, our hero takes Vermeil with him to school, managing to pass her off as a human and successfully passing his summoning exam. However, during the rest of the classes, Vermeil is very clingy, arousing jealousy in Lilia, who immediately goes to see the protagonist and challenges him to a duel. According to the school rules, any dispute between students is resolved through a duel, and the loser must do whatever the winner says. If Lilia wins, Vermeil won't leave the house unless necessary, and if Alto wins, he can ask Lilia for something. But instead of scaring her, it excites her. The duel begins and Lilia summons a Sylphide, a powerful wind spirit. Using it, she attacks the protagonist, thinking she has won. However, to everyone's surprise, Vermeil manages to stop the attack, which scares Lilia, especially when she sees Vermeil launching her attack. Vermeil demonstrates her abilities as a demoness, causing Lilia to lose decisively, barely saving her lips from the demoness. In view of her defeat, Alto proceeds to ask Lilia to be friends with Vermeil, scolding the latter so she doesn't cause any problems either. Both of them accept, but despite the order not to break it, they continue to have a difficult relationship. Later, when they get home, Vermeil explains to Alto why she needs to drain his mana. It turns out that being trapped for so long has weakened her, so without Alto's mana, she wouldn't be able to maintain her physical form. Not only that, but she can also summon a demon because his mana is very potent, something a normal person couldn't do without dying. The next day, as Alto and his waifu are arriving at school, he asks her not to do anything conspicuous. However, to their misfortune, an out-of-control dragon charges toward them, forcing Vermeil to stop it using only her fingers, surprising everyone. Later, as the students gather for a speech by the teachers, our hero scolds Vermeil for being too conspicuous, realizing that everyone has their eyes on her. After the speech, they have their first class of the second year, where a teacher explains the relationship with familiar spirits and demonstrates what happens when there is no genuine affection between them. Throughout the day, Lilia can't help but keep an eye on the protagonist, feeling jealous of Vermeil. Upon leaving school, they are joined by Rex, a dragon rider who has come to seek revenge for the dragon they encountered in the morning. While Vermeil fights with the dragon's owner, the protagonist takes the opportunity to encase them both in crystals, surprising Vermeil. However, Rex summons a dinosaur, threatening the protagonist to make his familiar spirit apologize. Our hero naturally refuses, and as Rex sends his familiar spirit to fight, Vermeil returns his mana to the protagonist, allowing him to perform a spell so powerful that it defeats the dinosaur, forcing Rex to apologize. Back at home, Alto tells Vermeil about his goal. There are 4 ranks for magicians: Gold Square, Silver Square, Bronze Square, and Apprentice Magician. The protagonist's goal is to become a great magician who reaches Platinum Square, a rank granted by the crown to the elite of the Gold Square. Vermeil is pleased to realize that Alto is the right person to be her master, promising him that he will achieve his goal and then recharge her mana, but this time with more than just a kiss. The next day, the group encounters Marx, a classmate of the protagonist who is the son of a noble family, and immediately they are called to the principal's office. The principal summons them to decide who will be the representative of the second year and has prepared a small test for them. It involves going to the forest and finding the fairy flower before 6 o'clock. Marx is the first to search for it, but he is immediately caught by a plant and his servant, Cheryl, has to help him out. Meanwhile, our hero and Lilia find the flower guarded by a Cerberus. In this situation, Lilia takes out an invisibility potion, which she plans to use to get past the Cerberus. However, she is embarrassed to realize that she needs to undress for the potion to work, even though Alto can't see her. Alto then starts planning with Vermeil how to obtain the flower. He asks her what she did before when she returned his magic to him, and she explains that she amplified it because Alto's mana is exceptionally pure. Due to this, she starts undressing herself since she needs more mana. While they are intimate, Lilia is discovered by the Cerberus. Alto rushes to her aid, giving her a chance to go for the flower, while he and Vermeil deal with the Cerberus. As Lilia descends with the flower, she offers it to the protagonist, but her invisibility potion wears off, causing her embarrassment, and she accidentally drops the flower, which flies over Cheryl, who picks it up and becomes the representative of the second year. Chapter 3. We move on to another day with our hero and Vermeil, where she's trying some creeps, marveling at how sweet they are. It's here that the protagonist realizes he knows nothing about her, so he's about to ask her when the Dragon Riders appear, including Chris, the captain. Later that same day, they meet up with their friends and start talking about Vermeil. Marx explains that she's also on the student council because she's a gold square. This is because mages of this rank gather in the same group to form the highest ranking body in the academy, and it's even said that not even the teachers can touch them. On the other hand, while Lilia is in the changing room, she complains to Cheryl about how suspicious Vermeil seems. Cheryl realizes how much Lilia cares for the protagonist and warns her that the more you get to know someone, the more complicated emotions become. After getting dressed, our hero meets Lilia and asks her to get along with Vermeil. Then, the members of the student council appear, surprising Alto with how cool they look. However, Chris notices something strange about Vermeil. Later that same day, while Alto takes a bath, Vermeil joins him to give him strength using the method we already know to fulfill her dream of becoming a powerful mage. While this happens, Rex is being beaten by Chris, who is disappointed that a lower-level student defeated him. This piques Chris' interest in the protagonist, and she is willing to forgive Rex. However, he refuses, realizing they are just a group of braggarts, and resigns, further increasing Chris' interest in our hero. The next day, Alto visits Rex, who he finds badly injured. Rex, after asking Alto his opinion on dinosaurs, lets him know it's not his fault, but Alto still knows what he must do. He challenges Chris to a duel, and she shows up in the arena without hesitation, summoning her dragon. Vermeil hurries to kiss Alto to restore his mana. They immediately begin the duel. However, Alto can't do anything to Chris, who continuously shoots fireballs, all of which are blocked by Vermeil. The attack continues, and seeing Vermeil taking damage, Alto tries to retaliate. However, it's not Alto's high power that surprises Chris, it's Vermeil taking her attacks head-on without protection. This prompts Vermeil to want to end the fight. Alto prepares a large number of crystals and launches them at Chris, who can't evade them, forcing her to mount her dragon. Using the dragon, she begins to rain down fireballs, forcing Alto to flee around the arena while Chris taunts him, likening him to a rat. Alto then asks her why she looks down on others, to which she replies that it's because she's higher than everyone else, just like a dragon. This irritates the protagonist, who believes that a familiar spirit is not something that determines status. Chris invites Alto to defeat her to prove her wrong. So together with Vermeil, they prepare for a final attack, accumulating a lot of mana. Chris finds this interesting and responds with her most powerful fireball, starting her ultimate clash. Chapter 4. Alto launches his strongest crystal, which upon colliding with the fireball, distracts Chris enough for him to climb using the crystals and corner her, winning the fight. Sometime later, Alto becomes very popular among the girls, causing jealousy in Lilia. At the same time, Professor Obsidian appears to warn Alto not to engage in duels on a whim again. Although Lilia tries to defend him, the professor knows he had his reasons. On the other hand, Chris is serving her part of the punishment by cleaning in the Dragon Riders Club. Rex arrives and she apologizes to him on Alto's behalf. Rex hands her the broom, and they both feel good about being on the same level now. In the evening at the protagonist's house, Vermeil sneaks into his bed to kiss him, surprising him greatly. He scolds her, but this doesn't stop her. She tries to convince him that she should only kiss someone she loves, to which Vermeil responds that she loves him very much, continuing with their intimate moment. The next day, Alto goes to Professor Obsidian, asking if it's possible for a demon to fall in love with a human. After some investigation, the professor tells him that there are incubi and succubi interested in humans, but it's only because they want their mana. This disappoints Alto greatly. Upon returning home, he feels disconnected, causing concern for Vermeil. He asks her if she's with him just for his mana, to which she demonstrates that it's not the case by kissing him without touching his mana. After this, Alto is in a much better mood the next day. On the same day, Professor Obsidian calls a student, supposedly needing her assistance. She confesses her feelings to him, and while it appears that the professor reciprocates, she is later seen frozen in her room. This draws the student council's attention, as it's the fourth incident of this kind in the year, prompting them to conduct an investigation, especially since the president is very concerned about the students. Back with the protagonist, he's struggling with measuring Vermeil, forced to write a detailed report about her as his familiar spirit. This doesn't sit well with him, especially when it comes to measuring her chest. given his sensitivity. Meanwhile, Lilia and Cheryl are outside the boys' dormitory, and when Lilia learns what's happening inside, she uses her invisibility position and a key she had to enter. She sneaks into Alto's room, and inadvertently, Alto ends up touching her as he can't see her. While this happens, Vermeil notices that her master has grown, having defeated Chris. However, Alto feels that she was holding back, so he tells her that he never wants to lose while being with her, surprising Vermeil. When Alto isn't looking, she writes on her homework that she also likes Alto. At the same time, Chris is getting beaten by Rex, who now appears even more malicious than before. Chapter 5. We begin by delving into Rex's past as a child when he received his familiar spirit, a huge egg that he initially believed to be that of a dragon. This egg caught Chris' attention, and since then, she became friends with Rex. Back in the present, Alto and Vermeil are out shopping. Vermeil wants sweets, but they are short on money, and our hero hesitates to buy them for her. In response, she starts pouting and acting very childish. It's only when she promises to clean his plate and the bathroom that Alto decides to buy her sweets. This delights her, and she jumps to kiss him in the middle of the street, attracting everyone's attention. Alto stops her, making her think that he actually wants her to absorb his mana, leading to a change in Vermeil's expression. Just then, Rex's friend arrives to inform them of what's happening. Meanwhile, Rex continues to attack Chris, who is unaware of what happened to her friend. As she tries to defend herself, Rex's body undergoes a transformation. He continues to attack her in an increasingly brutal manner, growing angrier and angrier. It's not until she mentions his name that he briefly stops. At that moment, our hero and the others arrive, finding Rex, who becomes excited that he can get revenge quickly without having to go after them. He throws Chris aside, and as Alto approaches her, she asks him to flee. Alto and Vermeil then prepare to confront Rex, but he summons his familiar spirit, which also has a strange rock-like armor. This catches Vermeil's attention as she notices that his mana has a different appearance. The student council president appears at this point, easily defeating Rex and his familiar spirit. The next day, the student council gathers to discuss the incident involving Rex. Chris storms out, furious that they are meddling with what's hers. On the other hand, the protagonist is distracted by what happened, which Lilia notices as the bronze exam approaches. Vermeil leaves, and Alto realizes that something is bothering her. Lilia seizes this opportunity to spend some time alone with him. Vermeil walks outside the school and encounters Professor Obsidian. She makes it clear that she's aware of his actions, and while it's none of her business, she warns him that if he harms her master, he will regret it, making Obsidian realize that she's a demon. Just as Vermeil is about to leave, the professor injects her with something strange, causing a strange magic to affect her. While this is happening, Alto is studying with Lilia, who, desperate to spend quality time with him, starts undressing. It's at this point that Alto's familiar spirit Seal alerts him that something is wrong with Vermeil. At that moment, all the members of the student council feel the presence of strange mana, prompting the president to mobilize and run outside the school. She encounters a paper doll trying to stop her. At the same time, we see Vermeil has adopted her true form, surprising the professor by demonstrating that she can cause massive destruction with just a movement of her arm. While this is happening, Alto is running towards them, concerned. Chapter 6. Seeing how out of control Vermeil is, Obsidian summons a chain to control her, and just then, Alto and Lilia arrive. Upon seeing them, the professor acts as if nothing is happening, demonstrating how he can control Vermeil. He also tells them about the injection he administered, which causes the user's powers to go berserk, making them easier to control. He also reveals his responsibility for the attacks on students. Alto, unable to comprehend this, confronts the professor directly, to which Obsidian admits to everything. This enrages Alto, who emits a large amount of mana, reaching Vermeil. Just as Obsidian boasts about being a better master than Alto, the chain breaks, causing Vermeil to go out of control and attack him. In order to prevent this, our hero steps between them and is impaled. We then see Vermeil immersed in emptiness, feeling alone. However, she instantly remembers that she has Alto with her, causing her to regain some consciousness but becoming more ferocious, attempting to attack Obsidian. Alto stops her once again, only to begin consoling her, reassuring her that she is not alone. This manages to calm Vermeil until she finally reverts to her humanoid form. Once this happens, the protagonist collapses, frightening Lilia, who thinks he's dead. However, Vermeil won't let him die because he's precious to her. She returns his mana to him to heal his wound, surprising Obsidian when he sees golden mana. Once our hero is saved, Obsidian becomes frustrated with the outcome. He takes the syringe seen earlier and injects himself, transforming into a grotesque demon, having absorbed many other lesser demons. While Obsidian originally intended to keep Vermeil as his pet, he now intends to eliminate her. However, when he tries to do so, Vermeil destroys half of his body with a single blow. This terrifies Obsidian, and he flees through the air, only to be intercepted by Chris. Vermeil then appears to finish him off, but not to eliminate him, as Alto wouldn't want that. Returning to Alto, he finally wakes up, relieving Lilia, who cries tears of joy. Later on, Alto meets with Vermeil, who, even though she thanks him for everything, still feels guilty. She explains that, although it may take decades, she will make sure his heart can function without her so that one day she can leave him, knowing that if she stays, she will cause him problems. This greatly upsets Alto, who kisses her without taking her mana, demonstrating his true love for her before leaving her all flushed. Chapter 7. Sometime later, a new day dawns at the academy, where female students are suffering from Obsidian's arrest. On the other hand, the boys are distraught due to Vermeil's absence, as she has been distant from our hero. Because of this, Alto believes that buying her sweets might cheer her up. They then see Vermeil alone and lost in thought. Lilia arrives, initiating a conversation in which Vermeil remains quite melancholic, although initially upset with her for what she did to the protagonist in recent days, making Vermeil remember how he kissed her. Lilia turns to comfort her. She tells Vermeil that it doesn't matter that she's a demon and that she should think about her feelings for the protagonist and what he thinks of her. This lifts Vermeil's spirits, and she returns home to the protagonist, who greets her happily. Despite this, Vermeil still feels guilty, mentioning that she hurt him because she is a demon and has done so before. She knows that staying with him could bring him problems, but she wants to be with him. Upon hearing this, Alto is relieved as he thought she was upset about what happened when he kissed her. He then asks her to lean on him when she has problems, as he is her master and will do his best to help her when she needs it. Upon hearing this, Vermeil asks him to kiss her, as she couldn't forget about him all day. The next day, they are both getting ready for class. However, Vermeil's uniform is too small, revealing her figure. At the same time, we see two powerful platinum mages, Isla and Helios, who knew about Obsidian, have defeated several monks and have already found their base. Once our hero and Vermeil arrive in class, they attract the attention of everyone with their new outfits, making everyone happy to see her and see them together and better. It's here that Lilia reminds them that the bronze exam is just around the corner, prompting Alto to ask Vermeil to work hard with him. This leads him to start kissing her to obtain more mana, as they will need it for the exam. In the midst of this, she becomes as affectionate as usual, showing that she's back to her usual self. Returning to the classroom where Alto is already exhausted, they notice a commotion at the door. This is because the members of the student council have arrived to look for him. Initially, they only ask him to mention everything he knows about Obsidian since he escaped. However, when the president asks if he's hiding something, they all start to threaten him. Just before Alto lies to protect Vermeil, she refuses, forcing her to confess that she is a demon, frightening everyone except the president. It's then that the protagonist explains the situation, making the president realize that it might be beneficial to have both of them, as the recent incident was caused by someone from the faculty. They still don't know if others are involved, but one of them disagrees initially, but eventually agrees once they realize the gravity of the situation. Additionally, in the worst case, they could simply behead the protagonist and end both issues. This makes Vermeil suspicious, but it doesn't stop the president from inviting the protagonist to join the student council. Chapter 8. While the reason for this is to keep an eye on him, Alto has also demonstrated a strong familial spirit as he dueled with Chris and participated in the incident where she was injured. This is why they want him on the council, and the protagonist has no choice but to accept. Later, he tells his friends about what happened, using the excuse that they saw potential in him, making them believe it's because he defeated Chris. This greatly encourages Marks and motivates Lilia even more to catch up with him, determined to give her all in the bronze exam. Upon returning home, Vermeil notices that Alto is feeling down because he felt pressured to join the council. However, Vermeil lets him know that he was truly in danger, as she didn't even feel that the president was human. This prompts our hero to decide to become stronger to protect Vermeil. Both of them then head to the council room, and as soon as the protagonist opens the door, he finds the council girls undressing. Obviously, Jessica gets angry at him and wants to punish him, but she is stopped by the president, who knows it was an accident, and even Chris agrees, leaving Jessica as the odd one out. Moving on to the main topic, the president shows the paper doll to the council members, revealing that the magic formula is so complex that neither the police nor investigators have been able to decipher it. This is when Alto realizes what it's about. Those who have gone so far as to invent new formulas and change the way everyone lives are only the platinum mages. We then see Helios and Iolite meeting with Kohakumiya, the mage who fought against the president during the Obsidian incident. Here, we can see that they have a demon even more horrifying than Obsidian. Kahaku complains about how long it took Iolite, but when she learns that he faced Hasvel, she becomes more interested in knowing how he convinced him. However, Iolite didn't convince him. Instead, he tells her that he killed him, displaying a chillingly cold gaze. Then he bids farewell to Kohaku, determined to go after Vermeil and our hero. Back with the protagonist, he finds himself in a destroyed city where a young Vermeil is crying in regret. When he tries to touch her, he suddenly appears elsewhere, where a mysterious woman asks him about his feelings for her, showing him two paths. One benefits humanity, while the other only benefits Vermeil. Just as she asks him about his feelings for her, Alto awakens, getting up to study. This prompts Vermeil to wake up and ask him to go back to sleep. However, the protagonist is nervous because the council members are pressuring him to approve something. It's at that moment that he notices Vermeil is naked, and upon hearing this, she takes him to bed with her, knowing that they will need a lot of mana. The next day, as Alto prepares for the exam, he finds the book where Vermeil was sealed and wonders who could have sealed her, recalling the woman from his dream. Later, the entire group of the protagonists gathers, ready for the exam. Not only them, but many other schools are also present, surprised to see them since their school is very competitive with only half of their students passing, while in other schools only a few do. Upon arriving at one of the exam locations, Cheryl recognizes the instructor as Colonel Pharynx, one of the royal mages. He goes on to explain that the exam involves channeling their mana into the flame inside the sphere in front of them. Although it seems easy to everyone, our hero knows that it can't be as simple as it appears. Chapter 9. The exam begins, but to the misfortune of the students, none of them can ignite the flame. No matter how many try or how impressive they may be, all are unable to light the flame inside the sphere. Lilia realizes the trick, understanding that she needs to flow her mana toward the flame, not the crystal, thus succeeding in lighting it and filling the entire sphere. This is copied by a student from another school, who acts very arrogantly, teasing the other students and pushing them to give their best to pass. Even Marx does his best, barely managing to pass. When it's Alto's turn, the same arrogant student confronts him about Vermeil as well as one of the instructors. However, Pharynx intervenes as the school has sent a message that Vermeil is his familiar spirit, something even the colonel hasn't seen before. Just before the protagonist begins, he realizes that the crystal is not ordinary, and that it works to flow mana from its surface outward. This leads him to position himself behind the crystal, making Pharynx realize that our hero has understood the true test. It turns out that the crystal has different points from which to supply magic, and it's easier to supply mana from behind. Right before Alto starts, Vermeil reminds him that this is the correct spot. This makes Alto remember the promise he made to become stronger, causing him to position himself to the side where it's more challenging to supply mana. However, this doesn't stop him from igniting the entire flame, turning it silver even, surprising everyone. Nevertheless, Vermeil gives him permission to stop holding back, so Alto channels even more of his mana until the sphere shatters. Thanks to this, he passes, leaving the instructors speechless, as even a platinum square would have a hard time achieving this. However, Pharynx's excitement shines through with a smile. Back with the protagonist Groot, everyone is astonished that Alto broke the crystal, and then they return their attention to the written exam. It's here that Marx reveals his secret weapon, which helped him pass the entrance exam for his school, a six-sided pencil. At this point, they discuss how almost no one achieves a perfect score, as even platinum squares stumble on something. However, Cheryl remembers that there's someone who managed to score perfectly on all their exams, from bronze to gold. Some time after they encourage each other, Vermeil and our hero have some alone time to recover, and although Alto tries to stop her, she knows what he really wants. However, this leaves them with little time to attend the next exam, and on the way, they encounter the arrogant student from the practical exam. Upon entering the restroom, he encounters Iolite, who without hesitation and then takes his exam ticket. We switch to Jessica and the president, who are training and then head for a shower. Here, they begin discussing the relationship between Alto and Vermeil, which surprises Jessica as she doesn't believe it's possible, let alone that Alto let her have his heart. The president responds that it was for love, mentioning that these things are also called miracles because they don't really exist. Back with our hero, he arrives late for the exam and Vermeil can't enter. However, he's not alone. Iolite arrives and sits beside him. Chapter 10. While Alto takes his exam, Vermeil complains about being forced to wait. Alto, on the other hand, notices that Iolite falls asleep next to him as he works on his exam. Just before the exam ends, Iolite wakes up, answering all the questions in seconds and even finding time to advise the protagonist, much to the professor's annoyance. However, Iolite knows that no one but him will solve the exam. At that moment, a guard enters the classroom to report the death of a student. This alerts the professor, who realizes what's happening. In response, Iolite summons a large stone golem, revealing to the protagonist that he knows about Vermeil. The professor attempts to stop him, but the golem crushes his arm. Pharynx arrives to destroy part of the golem, and Vermeil also appears to attack. However, none of this harms the golem, and in the meantime, Iolite is fascinated by Pharynx's strength. It's here that the latter discovers Iolite's identity, making our hero realize that he's the one Cheryl talked about, a prodigy who passed all his exams without errors, the youngest platinum square mage, and someone rumored to have stolen the ability to create life from God. Feeling flattered by these comments, Iolite summons cannons from his golem and puts it into combat. Meanwhile, Lilia is fighting the guards to enter and help Alto, but they stop her. She and some other guards manage to enter but are surprised by Helios' teleportation magic, which takes them back to the entrance. Returning to the protagonist, he and his companions try to confront Iolite, but they are easily defeated and Vermeil is captured. Naturally, this enrages the protagonist, who begins to display his golden mana and then conjures crystals in an attack against Iolite. With these crystals, he destroys the golem holding Vermeil, surprising everyone even more so when he demonstrates having silver mana. Iolite gets excited and summons 2 more golems, which Alto easily destroys, allowing him to approach Iolite. However, at that moment, a knight stops him. This leads Iolite to approach, discovering the source of his powerful mana. Alto asks him about his objective, to which Iolite responds that he wants to destroy the world with the help of Vermeil and other demons. When the protagonist tries to confront him, he is defeated again, prompting Vermeil to adopt her demon form. However, she is quickly captured. This doesn't stop the protagonist, who still wants to save Vermeil. This angers Iolite, and he launches an attack with his knight, but at that moment, Vermeil's book glows and blocks the attack. Then from the book appears the mage Alto saw in his dreams, introducing herself as the Mage of Beginnings, the first to reach the depths of magical knowledge. However, it's not really her. It's a memory she prepared for when Vermeil would be released. However, she explains that she sealed herself at Vermeil's request because she had done terrible things in the past. The mage approaches Vermeil, realizing that the only thing holding her back is her memories, or rather, her trauma. This is why she offers the protagonist the opportunity to save her if he's willing to embrace everything that the woman called the Great Calamity is. Obviously, Alto accepts, using the key to release the spell, thus traveling to Vermeil's memories where he sees her as a child. Chapter 11. In their memories, we can see Vermeil giving a flower crown to the sister at the church, which makes her very happy, especially when her family arrives. Later, they all enjoy a meal together, showing us that despite their poverty and the dilapidated abbey they lived in, Vermeil was happy with her family. However, even the mage doesn't know how she ended up there, as Vermeil only knows that she has been with them for as long as she can remember. At night, the sister explains to Vermeil that she is a demon, reassuring her that if she and the other children stay with her, they won't fear even God. However, the sister was the only one who knew that Vermeil was a demon, at least for some time. We then see how some children discover Vermeil's identity and begin to jeer at her and throw stones. This upsets the protagonist because he believes they shouldn't do that, and the mage warns him to prepare for what comes next. It's then that Mille, Vermeil's sister, appears to help her, discovering that she is a demon. Although she seems upset at first, all she does is embrace Vermeil and promise to protect her. Once they arrive at the church, a crowd gathers at the gates, shouting and demanding that Vermeil be taken away. Despite this, the sister promises Vermeil that she will protect her and that everything will be alright. However, the villagers become more aggressive over time due to a plague that struck the city, which they blame on Vermeil. The sister goes out to defend her, trying to appease the people's anger. While this is happening, Vermeil, upon seeing the situation, is ready to leave. But just before she does, Mille asks her to flee and leave them, urging her to think of something. However, she can't leave because she isn't strong enough to abandon her siblings. Vermeil, along with them, comforts her before leaving. In her escape, Vermeil overhears people still searching for her, and she hears them saying that they will go after her family if they don't find her, realizing that if she leaves, they will hurt them. Not wanting this and tired of running, Vermeil runs back to the abbey to turn herself in. However, when she arrives, she finds her entire family hanging, all while remembering the sister telling her that God loves good children. They see her in front of her family, rushing to try to kill her. All this while Vermeil continues to remember the sister's words, which are drowned out by the constant threats of the people. This makes Vermeil angry to the point of becoming a demon, setting everything on fire, and then showing us Vermeil crying and apologizing. Back with our hero, he is surprised to see the great destruction Vermeil caused, for which she would be known as the Greatest Scourge for 200 years before being sealed. However, Alto descends to her, determined to calm her down. While Vermeil only suffers and regrets what she has done, the protagonist comforts her, making her return to her original form where she still cries. It's here that Alto lets her know that even after everything she did, her family wouldn't hate her, and neither would he. Then he promises her that even if the whole world is against them, he will never abandon her, and then kisses her, breaking the chains she had. In this way, both return to the real world, where Alto finally admits that he is in love with her. Chapter 12. Seeing how both of them have been freed, Iolite realizes how serious he must become to deal with them, initiating their final battle. He summons his strongest knight, alerting the protagonist and Vermeil. Iolite begins to talk about what happened with Vermeil, making Alto realize that the power of demons, especially hers, is not something to be taken lightly. According to Iolite, if Alto keeps treating her like a pet, he will eventually die, so he and his companions will use her for something more fun, destroying the entire world. The protagonist stops him, saying that none of that matters because nobody sees the real Vermeil. They don't know that she likes sweets or what she looks like when she smiles. This irritates Iolite, who decides not to let him touch his Vermeil. Iolite then sends his knight to fight, while Alto and Vermeil prepare to give it their all in a powerful attack that destroys the knight. Seeing this, Iolite decides to get serious. However, Helios arrives to stop them, frustrating Iolite. But when they see the situation outside, they have no choice but to leave. Just before doing so, Alto tries to ask them about their objective again, but they don't tell him. Then Alto and Vermeil encounter the mage, whom Vermeil recognizes as Fatima. She warns the protagonist that now everyone might be against them, but she's not worried because she wants to become strong enough to protect Vermeil, which moves Vermeil and pleases Fatima, as she had entrusted her with it. She bids farewell to both of them, and the school is rebuilt thanks to her magic. Sometime later, our hero is training with Jessica and Chris, who give him a beating and make him realize that he still lacks many things, such as physical strength, tactical knowledge, and a lot of experience. After the tough training, Alto thanks them and asks them to practice with him again. This prompts Jessica to ask why he wants to become stronger since she believes he already is. To this, the protagonist simply responds that he wants to protect the one he loves and needs to become strong enough to do it on his own. This makes Jessica blush and Chris laugh at the situation. Despite what they told him, Alto feels happy because he knows he can become even stronger than he already is. Later that night, the protagonist and Vermeil spend quality time together, showing us that Alto is much more assertive, while Vermeil acts much sweeter and more submissive, something Alto hadn't noticed before. When the two of them lie down, Vermeil admits that her heart has been racing since he told her he loved her, thanking him and making them affectionate once more. The next day, our hero meets with the student council, where the president knows they can't just stand by after the recent incidents. Obviously, everyone has their own reasons for agreeing, including Alto, who accepts without hesitation. On the other hand, Lilia, Cheryl, and Marx celebrate passing the written exam, but when they realize that Alto isn't there, Lilia angrily goes to find him. Back with Alto, he's with Vermeil, having their daily kissing session. As always, Alto tries to stop her, but she is insistent to the point that she knocks him to the ground, and there she tells him that she is counting on him from now on. Then they share another kiss. Wow, what an ending. See you next time, folks.